assassinations, coups and violence are assumed to be encountered more in developing nations. However, believed to be the home of free speech and democracy, the U.S. has a considerable history of political assassinations.
2 priests who were with President Kennedy say he is dead.
Some assassinations were successful. Dozens of them were thwarted by the intelligence agencies or sheer luck. Some of the assassinations were brought to light and others stayed a mystery.
Here's a list of them which could not been prevented and reached the target and resulted with death or wound of U.S. presidents or candidates. 1865. Abraham Lincoln. After the end of the Civil War, Lincoln was watching the play Our American Cousin. Booth approached him from behind and shot him in the back of his head. After the shooting, Booth jumped on the stage and cried "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants.
Sic semper tyrannis!
The assassination was thought to be linked to the statute granting voting rights to the Afro-Americans who served in the Union Army after the abolishment of slavery in 1863. Lincoln's Democrat successor Andrew Johnson enacted black codes to limit Afro-Americans' rights. 1881. James Garfield. On the 2nd of July 1881, Republican Party leader and President of the U.S. James Garfield, after serving almost 4 months, was shot in a train station by Charles J. Guiteau. The assassin Guiteau claimed his act was the will of God and he was only a mediator. Although his defendants claimed insanity, he was sentenced to death. Some historians claimed that the stalwarts faction within the Republican Party was behind the assassination. 1901. William McKinley. Renowned as a founding member of the U.S. imperialistic foreign policy, Republican President William McKinley was shot by socialist anarchist iron and steel worker Leon Czolgosz on the 6th of September 1901 in New York, Temple of Music. After the assassination, the full-time protection of the presidents were added to the duties of the Secret Service. Immigration Act, also known as Anarchist Exclusion Act, passed the Congress and some people were forbidden to immigrate to the U.S. 1912. Theodore Roosevelt. The first president to survive an assassination attempt during an election campaign was Theodore Roosevelt. On his campaign for his 3rd term as the candidate of the Progressive Party, he was shot by an old barkeep John Schrank on 14th of October 1912 in Wisconsin. Roosevelt completed his speech with blood on his shirt. His first words were, "It takes more than that to kill a bull moose." However, the assassination attempt did not help him to be re-elected, and he lost the election to the Democrat candidate Woodrow Wilson. 1963. John F. Kennedy. John Kennedy was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald in the 22nd of November 1963, a year prior to elections, as he was cruising in a convertible. Oswald was murdered by Jack Ruby 2 days after he was taken into custody, taking so many questions answers to the grave.
I didn't shoot anybody, no, sir.
The Kennedy assassination has been a major source of conspiracy theories in U.S. history, with the theory of CIA involvement gaining particular prominence over time. 1968. Robert Kennedy. In 1968, John Kennedy's brother and presidential candidate nominee Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan as he was celebrating primary election wins in California. Sirhan claimed to assassinate Kennedy for his support of Israel. If not for the assassination, Robert Kennedy was a strong contender to be the presidential candidate of Democrats and a U.S. president. 1981. Ronald Reagan. The motive of the assassin John Hinckley Jr. was to draw the attention of Jodie Foster. He thought he could get attention if he assassinated the president like Robert De Niro in the movie Taxi Driver Jodie Foster starred in. Reagan returned to the White House after 2 weeks of treatment. The events added to Reagan's popularity. The polls were indicating a 60% win in March, rose to 70% in the upcoming months. 2024. Donald Trump. Trump was shot at by 20-year-old Matthew Crooks in Pennsylvania during a campaign meeting from a distance of 120 meters. Just as he was shot at, Trump turned around to read a table about irregular immigrants and the bullet grazed his ear. The sniper of the Secret Service killed Crooks with a single bullet. Crooks was not questioned, and the only source to know if the act was organized or not disappeared. U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle resigned after the assassination attempt. After the assassination attempt, dissident Republicans were consolidated behind Trump. 8 days after the attempt, Democrat candidate and President Joe Biden announced his resignation from the election because of his age and health issues. Kamala Harris will be running against Trump as the Democrat candidate. As for the effect of the assassination attempt on the elections, we need to wait for the results of the election.